Hi, this is Pedro. For today's video, I'm going to assume that you really want to create a melody that sounds quirky or alien or even out of the ordinary. To do that, you can make use of things like symmetric scales, which is the topic for today's video. Now, symmetric scales can have a bit of a problem. Well, not necessarily a problem, because if it's something that you want to, it's perfectly fine. But they can get you boxed in their sound after a while or very quickly. Take the example of the whole tone scale. You can only basically use augmented chords from it, and so it can feel one-dimensional after a while. But before you dismiss using symmetric scales altogether and just consign them for weird transitions, let me show you some ways that you can go about and make music using them. Symmetric scales can be an excellent source material to create quirky melodies. We could harmonize those melodies with chords from those scales, but as mentioned, there's a tendency to get boxed in very quickly in their sound. So we are going to force a marriage between the weird and the familiar. Let's say your melody in the whole tone scale hits an E. You could harmonize it thinking of it as the third of C major, the fifth of A minor, or the augmented fourth of B flat major. This means that amidst the weirdness, your harmony provides a familiar and grounding chord underneath it. So you identify which notes in your quirky melody that can relate to that standard chord, and that will be our procedure. Let's hear some examples harmonized using only major and minor chords. Now, sometimes a major or minor chord carries too much emotional baggage. To get away from that, you can use suspended chords. These are tonally neutral. They give the melody a floor to walk on, but without the happy or sad vibe. Here's another example over the same augmented scale melody, but this time using suspended chords. And pay attention to your bass notes. The moment you put a specific root under a quartal or suspended chord, you dictate the gravity of the entire harmony. To illustrate, here is the same harmonized melody with suspended chords, but using different bass roots. Okay, so if you are sitting there and thinking, I would love to create music using these materials, but it's not quite happening for me. They are so foreign and so unfamiliar that I'm not able to get a proper melody. You can use a simple trick for this, which is to create a melody using a scale that you are more comfortable with. And after doing that, you can always map those notes to the nearest tones of the symmetric scale that you are planning to use. So it's simple and it works. What happens is that you keep the human rhythm and the melodic contour, but you change the DNA to something more alien, which is our goal. So here is a melody created with the C major scale. And here is how it sounds after being remapped, in this case to the tritone scale. There is a secret to make weird chord progressions work, and that secret is voice leading. Voice leading is going to be paramount for what we are going to do. We'll be harmonizing the melodies as we did before, but this time we're going to make a conscious effort to control the amount of tension that we want to have. If your melody is jumping around in strange intervals, keep your chord voices from jumping as well. Move them as little as possible, if at all. The ear is incredibly forgiving if the chords move smoothly and logically, even if they are not functionally related. The listener will accept almost any weird note in the melody because the chord transitions feel safe. And with that in mind, let me show you different approaches to harmonizing these quirky melodies. The first example is a more consonant approach, using major and minor chords. Now with the same melody but using a more dissonant approach, including sus chords. Another way to embrace the quirk is to use parallel harmony, which consists in moving your entire chord structure in the same direction as the melody. Whether you maintain the chord quality or not will depend on the effect being created in that context. You can definitely change from major to minor at any given point that you decide. It's a mix and match kind of situation. And now we are going to reverse the logic used so far. We're gonna take a completely tonal and simple melody and force the harmony to be the symmetric element. In other words, we are going to create a tonal melody and harmonize it using the chords that can be created with a symmetric scale. In this case, we are going to use chords from the augmented scale. It's going to create this tension where the listener knows the tune but can't quite find the floor. I used that same tonal melody we created previously before it was remapped. Depending on the chords that you chose, if you feel that there is too much tension, try arpeggiating those chords so you can dilute the tension. Maybe choosing to start on a more consonant relationship between the melody and the pitch of the used chord, and then let the rest of the harmonic sound unfurl. And now we're going to use modal interchange with symmetric scales. So modal interchange is basically borrowing another chord or a bunch of chords from another mode that usually share the same tonic. In this case we are going to use C Phrygian and C tritone scale. I didn't have to, but besides borrowing chords from C tritone, I also brought in the pitches so I would feel the change more clearly in the spot that I chose. First I created the full melody in C Phrygian and then remapped the bit that I wanted to C tritone. And at the end of the day, the human ear will always be looking for an anchor. And providing that you are able to create that common ground between the harmony and the melody, you can take your melody, as quirky as it may be, to the edges of the universe and back. The listener will still follow. They may be intrigued by the strangeness of it all, but they will not be lost. Anyway, I hope that this video has inspired you to keep making great music. And as usual, do not forget about the links that are in the description. I've put them there to assist you with anything that you might be missing from this video. If you are enjoying this content, hit like and subscribe. It will help the channel grow. Thank you for watching, and until next time.